Everyone's Deadpool Negative. I'm back with another comic review, this time of the Black Widow and Hawkeye miniseries, which is, I believe, the 60th anniversary celebration of both characters. Um, both issues written by, these two issues written by Stephanie Phillips and drawn by Paolo Villanelli. I've always been a big fan of these characters. They're part of the, like, the Black Widow is one of my favorite Marvel characters. I still remember, I believe it was back in '86 when I was started collecting Marvel. I got a digest-sized comic that had a preprint of a Ross Andrews story that was in Marvel Superheroes. That was basically a fill-in issue, and then John Romita, then a copy of Amazing Spider-Man '86, which had the original debut of the Black Widow's Emma Peel outfit, as seen in this boobtacular Adam Hughes cover. And I kind of crushed hard in that character, and I have in the nearly 40 years since. I have enjoyed kind of had 50-50 on the solo projects. I think Devin Grayson's miniseries is terrific. The George Perez Marvel Fanfare story is fantastic. And there's also a Hawkeye. Hawkeye I've enjoyed mostly as a supporting character. His solo stuff really worked as a solo character, I think. Even in Solo Avengers, it was more like, hey, here's the guest star. I do think Fabian Nicieza came close with his a Hawkeye series, which Marvel should really get around to collecting because it was good. And also had a really good Black Widow and Hawkeye story in there. But as you know, these characters started out as villains in the Iron Man run in Sales of Suspense, and Black Widow was a Russian spy, and the Hawkeye was a costumed dingbat who she hired to help him out, and she eventually defected to the U.S. because Hawkeye. She was so shocked by Hawkeye's concern and love for her, even though she was basically using him. And she fell in love with him too, and it was a good little story. And they've broken up, gotten together over the years, and here we are with a new series, written by Stephanie Phillips and drawn by Paolo Villanelli. These are the first two issues, and I'm not a huge fan of either of these creators. In fact, Stephanie Phillips is one of those creators I think just doesn't really work in superheroes because they're not. The Stephanie Phillips comic read that I really enjoyed was Nuclear Family, which was sort of a riff on a Philip K. Dick story that Aftershock published, which is about a family that the bombs go off, but they sort of find themselves displaced in an alternate world where the bombs have gone off. And yet they're normal, and there are people running after them. It's drawn by Tony Chastain. It was really good. It was 5 issues. Really just good, effective, and cerebral. It wasn't like it was about human beings. And I'm wondering, maybe that's just her thing. Like, she's not really, because most of her superhero stuff is boring. And a couple years ago, maybe 18 months ago, she really childishly lashed out at a review of her Harley Quinn comic, where the guy said, "Oh, the review had one of the laziest things you can say about a comic. Like, looks like this writer didn't put any effort into it," and she freaked out and demanded that writer be held accountable publicly. I'm like, held accountable? He probably wasn't even paid for that. Like, and it kind of made me want to give up on her writing. But then your boy Zach started complaining about her, and I don't like your boy Zach. I could record a whole 4-hour video about why I don't like your boy Zach. And of course, he never goes after her for pointing out the flaws in her writing. He goes after her because she's rich. She's a trust fund baby. She shouldn't be allowed to write. Like, Zach is such a terrible critic because he keeps framing everything as a personal attack. And I like hurting him. And the only way to hurt your boy Zach is to buy comics by people he doesn't like. So I decided to give these a try. And while they are flawed, they do have their good points. They are flawed. I'm going to start off with the premise itself is kind of flawed. That's not necessarily Phillips's fault. The story starts with Hawkeye being accused of assassinating a foreign minister. And let's see, yes, foreign minister. He assassinated the Russian foreign minister. And of course, Black Widow is like, Hawkeye would never do that. I'd better investigate that. And she goes to Mockingbird, who tells her, look, I can give you the information, the shield, but being told be hands off about this. And I'm like, okay, it's the old, they're on the run, they're accused of something they didn't commit. It's like, why can't these superhero secret agents ever get somebody to come to them and say, hey, why don't, here's a bad guy to go after. Of course, to them, I guess now it's like they've got always got to be on the run because that would be propaganda. If they said, bad guy, go after him, which is what they normally do. But here's the problem with the premise. Mockingbird comes up to them and like, wait a minute. I just read I didn't finish it, a series that wrapped up just a few months ago where the Black Widow and Mockingbird are on the same team, the Thunderbolts, and they were like, oh yeah, we're going to fight more bad guys. Hooray. And there is no follow up to that. Like, she doesn't call Bucky the Winter Soldier. She doesn't call the LMG Valentina. She doesn't do any of that. Like, well, I figured, oh, you know what it is? This is probably a comic book in Marvel coming from another editorial department. And, we all know nobody in the Marvel editorial department knows what the other editorial department is doing. A continuity? Who cares? I mean, obviously, the editors of Black Widow and Hawkeye, the Thunderbolt series, let's see, Alana Smith and Kathleen Lindveld, they obviously weren't able to communicate with the editors of Black Widow and Hawkeye, who are Alana Smith and Kathleen Lindveld. The Thunderbolts aren't mentioned. There's not even like, I want to do this on my own. The Black Widow was part of that group. Like, they would help her. And I know what Alana Smith and Kathleen Lindveld will tell me. It's like, they would block me on Twitter if I asked. But the second thing they say, well, these are trades. We were writing these for trades. But no. Okay, if you can remove, like, cut that part out of your brain, what do we have here? We have a kind of a dull plot so far in these two issues. Like, actually, things happen in issue 2, but I feel like there's maybe 3. This is a 4-issue series, and there's maybe 3 issues of story. And it's, how to put this? It's decent, but it just doesn't. It's so far. It's not. What's good about it doesn't make up for the fact that it's kind of like overly familiar and sometimes dull. Even though the artist Paolo Villanelli did Captain Marvel, some GI Joe issues. He's obviously heavily manga influenced, but he's also really like, look at some of this. Like, it's dynamic, but it's also so sketchy and bizarre. And I think that what I like about it is like Phillips stronger than usual. The characterization of particularly Black Widow is stronger than usual. This is very much a Black Widow story guest starring Hawkeye, which is fine, but I think a lot better than, say, Teenie Howard. She gets into her characters' heads well, and what's this story is really about is how much Hawkeye means to Black Widow, and how deeply she needs him. Like Hawkeye does have some point of view, but she wants to neatly believe in the Hawkeye's good. She wants to believe because there are flashbacks to their days as the Black Widow and Hawkeye as Iron Man villains, and the Black Widow, I think, learned to self-love through Hawkeye's love of her, and I think she's almost letting that cloud her judgment. It's an interesting idea, but I'm not sure if Phillips is really following through on it. But the actual plot itself just feels a little draggy and I think Phillips does a good job with the symbiote. Now the Black Widow has this resource, the symbiote, which has its bad and good qualities, and she doesn't entirely know how to work with it properly. I mean, there was supposed to be a solo Black Widow series. Venom was supposed to be a Black Widow solo. Torun Grönbeck wrote the first couple issues. It was kind of another. It was kind of a dull, generic story about terrorists that sounded a lot like the Nathan Edmondson run. Yeah, I didn't really enjoy the Nathan Edmondson run. I know he's a bad person. That doesn't mean I didn't enjoy it. I know what kind of person he's accused of being, and I do believe those allegations. But I like the story. I don't know what to tell you. Um, but it just felt like a really low tier ripoff of that. And Grunbeck as a person, I think, has decent moments. I would say her one Captain Marvel annual was a lot better than most of what Kelly Thompson has done. But still, like she doesn't like her issues were just okay, and then Al Ewing took over Venom again, and I guess they gave Black Widow this miniseries to compensate, and they're getting an Erica Schultz one shot. Um, Clint believes he killed the Russian minister. From what we can see, he killed the Russian minister, and the Black Widow is just using, and she needs that Clint, maybe, and that's a good or bad thing. I'm not really 100% sure where Phillips is going with this, and I think she might be going somewhere interesting. The thing is, the villain is revealed to be another character that you. It's not really that. Oh, it's that guy. Oh, great. I guess. Like, I mean, is he supposed to show up in an MCU project? Is that why you're using him? It's that kind of thing. I don't know what to. It's frustrating because like I can see the shape of a good comic here, but Villanelli's artwork is way too scattered, too sketchy. The faces look odd. I mean, the story moves, but it just moves too quickly. It's too much speed lines, too much manga style. It's frustrating. I don't like the way he draws faces, but I do like the way he draws like characters in motion. Again, like the thing is like if this is about say anyone but Hawkeye and Black Widow, which is about someone who was run up, I feel a lot more suspense. But again, this just kind of feels like oh, things will be happy at the end. I mean, it's better than that weird miniseries where Matthew Rosenberg just kept kicking Hawkeye in the head for 440 pages. Um, but like maybe the second half of the miniseries, which I've got to get, will clear it all up. But I can't really recommend it. But I do appreciate what Phillips is trying to do. I appreciate that Black Widow's desire for Clint to be a good person feels real and palpable. I just wish everything else in the comic didn't feel so one note or poorly put together. Not poorly put together, just standard. Also, the guy doesn't really like growing background, but who does these days? It's just a very much like a problem with a lot of these new writers. Like they get great character moments, but they don't put it in a story that really got me going. But your boy Zach probably got a little pain in his chest over this, so it was worth it. Anyway, like the bell, hit for notifications, like and subscribe, etc. Talk to you later. Bye.